Received with mixed reviews, it is acclaimed as the best American novel in years, but also as a novel which is disorganized, unreadable, and crass. However, it is its disorganized nature which makes the whole charm of the message, as it conveys a deeper message about the ongoing conflict of war and humanity by confusing the reader as they read the novel to explore the absurdity of war. Joseph Heller was born on May 1st, 1923 in Cronin Island, New York. He comes from two poor parents that immigrated from Russia to the United States. Ever since Heller was a child, he had a passion for writing. In fact, when he was a teenager, he wrote a story and sent it to the New York Daily News, but it was rejected. In 1942, 1 year after graduating high school, Heller enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Corps at the age of 19. I'll come back on this later. After the war, Heller studied English at the University of South Carolina and the University of New York. He later went on to receive his master's in English from Columbia University in 1949, and he taught composition at the Pennsylvania State University from 1950 to 1952. He is best known for his novel Catch-22, which he started writing in 1953, and it was first published in 1961. Heller died at the age of 76 on December 12, 1999, due to a heart attack. Catch-22 is set during the Italian campaign of World War II on the island of Pianosa, just off the coast of mainland Italy. The novel follows the story of a young American bombardier, Captain John Yossarian. Yossarian is very attached to life, and he wishes not to lose his. He is also the only one who realizes that there is a war going on, which causes everyone around him to think that he is crazy. Funnily, Yossarian's sole and only goal is to avoid flying combat missions, but the military bureaucracy always finds a way to make him stay. The real enemy is not the Germans or the Italians, but it is in fact his own camp. As mentioned before, Heller joined the U.S. Army Air Corps at the age of 19. Like Yossarian, Heller was a bombardier on board a B-25 and was posted in southern Italy with the 488th Bombardment Squadron, 340th Bomb Group, 12th Air Force. Undoubtedly, some of Heller's experiences in the war inspired parts of the novel, and although the officers portrayed in the novel are mean and bad, Heller states that he never had a bad officer. Although the novel is set during World War II, it was written throughout the 50s, and in 1977, Heller states that the anti-war and in a 1977 essay, Heller states that the anti-war and anti-government feeling of the novel is actually targeted towards the Korean War. Furthermore, there are anachronisms in the novel which indicate the 50s time period, such as the loyalty oaths used during the Red Scare and the IBM machine. Also, the slogan of Milo Minderbender's enterprise, "What's good for M&M Enterprise is good for the country," comes from the slogan of General Motors president and former United States Secretary of Defense Charles Irwin Wilson, what's good for General Motors is good for the country. Before I dive into my thesis and analysis, let's take a look at the historical attitude Americans took towards the war. Looking at Mary Pfeffer's master thesis on American attitude towards World War II during the period from September 1939 to December 1941, it is seen that before the Pearl Harbor attacks in 1941, the vast majority of Americans did not feel the need to join in yet another world conflict in Europe, as there was a distinct lack of war mind in the United States. Although the British had been pushed out of France in 1940 and the German occupation of Europe was at its peak, American politicians and civilians felt that there would be no beneficial outcome for the United States if it were to join and help the British. In fact, the U.S. Congress had agreed on a Neutrality Act in 1937 to avoid being lured and urged into a conflict they did not want to commit themselves into. Flash forward to December 7, 1941, when now mainland USA was attacked, and the rule of Hitler's Nazi regime in Europe started to threaten the British mainland. The United States joined the war in an effort to save itself and its allies, and caused an upspark of patriotism, as a great nation such as America cannot isolate itself physically, morally, or intellectually from the rest of the world, and that in the future it cannot assume an attitude of cool detachment in the midst of a world catastrophe. The distinct lack of war mind is seen with Yossarian and the attitude he takes towards the war. He does not want to be there and clearly wants to find any possible way to escape. And the reason The rise of patriotism is seen with soldiers such as the Texan, Colonel Cathcart, and Major Danby, just to name a few. The American attitude taken The historical American attitude is important because, as the novel has an anti-war feel, it could be assumed that Heller was in fact against the war, but it makes us question why he did join the war effort. Why did he go to Italy, and why did he fight? My thesis for this lecture is as follows. Joseph Heller explores the morality and absurdity of war through the various characters in the novel. When exploring the novel through a moral lens, war is revealed as a medium which removes the concept of morality, but also as a way to dehumanize and render faceless those who participate in it. To bring depth to my thesis, I'll be exploring two main ideas. Firstly, Heller demonstrates the removal of morality through the conflict between war and religion, and secondly, how the theme of absolute power of bureaucracy exemplifies how war is dehumanizing and removes moral values. Back in the 1930s and 1940s, religion played an integral role in morality. It dictated the moral values and beliefs of someone because it would then lead that person closer to God. Heller uses this fact to explore the impact war has on religion in the novel, and how conflict of war versus religion leads to the removal of morality. The key character used in the novel to explore this point is the chaplain. From the beginning of the novel, the chaplain is presented as someone who has faith in religion and who has good moral standards. He is the pillar of morality in the novel. However, as the novel progresses, war starts to bring down that pillar and removes morality. This is first seen where the chaplain lives. He lives by himself in a tent in the middle of the woods 4 miles away from everyone else. The alienation is not only made by the chaplain where he lives, but that when the chaplain comes to group headquarters, he is avoided and disregarded as if he was a ghost. The ghost of morality, the same morality that died as soon as the war took over. There is disdain over having the Lord around in a place of warfare. This illustrates that war and religion cannot coincide with each other due to their two different sets of ideals. On one side, you had bureaucracy, which I will touch on next, as an absolute power versus the absolute power representing God and religion. It also shows that alienation or exile of the chaplain means that in times of war, what is morally considered bad outweighs and eliminates what is morally considered good. A Globe and Mail article written back during the war mentioned that war will predominate tomorrow again in the subjects of sermons, indicating that war is everywhere and that there is no escape from it. It removes the moral and religious side of a sermon. Furthermore, war has an even greater impact on the chaplain as it makes him question his faith. And not, and not only is he questioning his faith, he is also questioning if he was to- if he was to- if what he was told was the truth. Is he living a lie? Was he raised into a lie? And if he was, is war then the image of truth? Heller makes the same point with Yossarian. Yossarian experiences a similar moment to the chaplain's where he questions his morality and the morality of the world around him, and questions the truth of what he thinks he knows. By having both characters question their right and wrong, Heller exposes the devastating impact of war on religion, and therefore the impact of war on morality. The development of the novel leads the chaplain in pieces. War has crumbled the pillar of morality and removed its debris, clearly indicating that there is no place for God, religion, or morals in war. It is known that when someone is placed in a position of power, they will start to develop an undying greed for power. In Catch-22, the undying greed of power is seen with the military bureaucracy and how they can manipulate anything into something that benefits them or into something that can deteriorate their enemies. This is seen when Major Dunbar reveals the true power of military bureaucracy to Yossarian and tells him that the bureaucracy can get whatever it wants to accomplish their goal of destroying him. It is also known that when there is absolute power, moral and values are thrown out the window. As Lord Acton stated, Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That same balance is what Heller wanted to expose to the world, that an increase of power will lead to immoral actions, and that power dehumanizes. The military bureaucracy in Catch-22 is faithless and emotionless, and it has no moral standard. In fact, the United States Air Force Academy uses the novel as a way to help prospective officers recognize the dehumanizing aspect of the bureaucracy. In the novel, officers are only looking towards their personal growth within the organization. Power has changed their mind and turned them greedy, and with greed comes a lack of morality. They are taking decisions that only benefit them and that would lead them to promotion. And when something happens that doesn't fit them, they push the blame on someone else, like lower ranking officers or enlisted men, or they make a celebration out of what happened to avoid having to take responsibility and guilt for their own fault. Bureaucracy cannot admit fault or guilt due to its dehumanized and immoral nature. This goes with the previous point of war versus religion, as bureaucracy and religion cannot work together because religion entails a person's acceptance of culpability and responsibility for his or her choices and actions, as well as the embrace of faith and good works to better the world, a statement that contradicts the ideal of the military bureaucracy. In the novel, this is seen with the way officers react to the Ferrara catastrophe, which led Yossarian to be promoted to captain and to receive a medal. Heller uses the theme of absolute power and democracy to show the dangers of a faceless organization, especially during times of war, and that with a dehumanized organization, moral differentiation of right and wrong is non-existent. The theme also leads to anti-government feeling, a warning Heller might have been trying to pass as he indicates in the novel that there should never be 100% trust in the bureaucracy since its appearance is often deceiving. In conclusion, Heller uses the novel as a way to demonstrate the ramifications of war in terms of morality. He uses that novel's absurdity as a way to demonstrate the true nature of war, but also as a warning to show the world the brainwashing capabilities of war, in which humans are dehumanized and therefore their moral sense of right is wrong is completely removed from them. The novel reminds us that we should avoid war at all cost because, as American author Karen Mary Moning said, who and what we surround ourselves who and what we surround ourselves in war. As American author Karen Mary Moning said, who and what we surround ourselves with is who and what we become. If we surround ourselves in war, which renders immorality and dehumanizes, we shall then in return become immoral and faceless, just like the bureaucracies. In a way, Catch-22 is a plea to us, the readers, to stay human. Catch-22 was a book that I enjoyed reading. However, I'm not sure if I would like to read it again, maybe in a couple years. I enjoyed the feel of the book. It was comical and lighthearted, despite it being about war. It alleviated the seriousness of what was going on. I somewhat enjoyed the blocky jump cut structure of the novel, as it added to the general confusing effect that war has, but it made it hard to keep following the chronological timeline of the events. I chose to format my presentation as what I call a visual essay, as it follows somewhat the structure of an essay. I also organized it in a manner that made sense to me and that stopped me from being redundant and continuously going back to points made or to foreshadow points to be made. What I found challenging about the whole experience was getting into the right headspace to do the work and not procrastinate, as I've had zero motivation to do any schoolwork since May due to the ongoing situation. Despite that, I still feel that I put the effort into making a decent project instead of starting the work a day or two right before the due date and having a rough and unelaborated final result. What is rewarding to me is that I exposed myself to another well-renowned novel and that this whole experience led me to do something productive with my time instead of completely wasting it. Thank you, Miss Hughes, for this opportunity. Have a nice day.